The morning of my graduation felt unreal, like I was stepping into a dream I had chased for years. The sun glinted off the polished floors of the auditorium, and the faint smell of fresh flowers mixed with the crisp scent of new suits and dresses. I adjusted the black cap on my head, trying to calm the fluttering in my stomach. Today was supposed to be a day of triumph, a celebration of every sleepless night, every sacrificed weekend, every moment I had chosen study over social life. I stole a glance at the audience, my eyes scanning for familiar faces. My parents sat in the front row, smiling, clapping at every announcement, and I felt a rush of warmth, and a trace of sadness, because my sister, Celine, was there too. Celine, the person who had spent my entire life overshadowing me with her charm, her beauty, her effortless confidence. She had never understood my need to excel, never acknowledged the late nights, the endless cups of coffee, the anxiety that had kept me awake. And yet, today, she was here, dressed impeccably, her smile perfect, eyes glinting with that subtle mixture of pride and something else I couldn't quite name. I tried to focus on the positive, reminding myself that this was my moment. When my name was called, I rose slowly, heart hammering in my chest. The applause was deafening. I walked toward the stage, my heels clicking against the wooden floor, feeling every pair of eyes on me. For the first time in my life, I felt the weight of my own accomplishments pressing down, not as a burden, but as a crown I had earned. Then it happened. A voice, loud, sharp, cutting through the applause, shattered the moment. She cheated her way through college. The entire auditorium froze. Conversations halted mid-word. Heads turned, mouths gaped. I stopped in my tracks, my hand trembling as it brushed against the edge of the podium. It took a moment for my brain to process, for the words to sink in. Celine. My own sister. She stood in the middle of the aisle, eyes blazing, pointing at me as if to brand me a criminal. The shock hit me like a fist to the chest. I felt my stomach drop, my throat tighten. I wanted to scream, to defend myself, but the words caught in my mouth. My diploma, my hard-earned victory, now felt like a fragile sheet of paper that might be snatched away. Whispers rippled through the audience like a wave. Parents leaned forward, professors frowned, and some of my classmates' eyes widened with suspicion, or perhaps disbelief. I could feel every heartbeat in that auditorium, a rhythm of judgment and confusion that pressed down on me, threatening to crush the joy I had imagined for this day. I closed my eyes for a fraction of a second, breathed in slowly, and made a choice. I could let Celine steal my moment, or I could reclaim it. My legs moved forward almost on autopilot, carrying me across the stage with the poise I had spent years cultivating. I reached the podium, smiled politely, and accepted my diploma. The applause, still hesitant and shocked, washed over me, but I barely noticed. Leaning toward the dean, I whispered a few words, just enough for him to hear. His eyes widened slightly, a small, knowing smile tugging at his lips. He nodded. That was all the confirmation I needed. Whatever I had planned, it was set into motion. I straightened, my heart still pounding, and looked out at the crowd. Celine's mouth was open, mid-sentence, but the words fell flat. I had been accused, humiliated, and yet I stood taller than I had ever stood in my life. Today, my story was far from over. And in that moment, I realized that this betrayal, this audacity, was not the end. It was the beginning. The tension in the auditorium lingered like smoke long after the echoes of Celine's accusation faded. As I walked back to my seat, clutching my diploma, I couldn't stop thinking about how we had ended up here, how a bond that should have been unbreakable had been poisoned by jealousy, envy, and the quiet cruelty of years spent competing instead of loving. Growing up, Celine had always been the golden child, though in our house, her brilliance was measured not by effort but by charm and looks. She was magnetic, everyone adored her. Teachers praised her natural talent, parents praised her effortless grace, and I, Mara Alvarez, was left standing in the shadows, my achievements quietly acknowledged but never celebrated with the same fanfare. Even as a child, I learned that effort was invisible. I stayed up late perfecting school projects while Celine twirled into the living room with her latest award, a sparkling smile masking the ease with which she seemed to glide through life. And while I earned my grades through endless hours of study, she seemed to absorb success like sunlight, effortlessly and untouchable. My parents would tell me, "You're so smart, Mara, but Celine, she's just special." Special. The word still stung. I was diligent, disciplined, brilliant, but I was never special. By the time college came around, the divide between us had only widened. I worked 2 part-time jobs while maintaining a near-perfect GPA. I applied for scholarships, internships, and research opportunities, and I was careful, meticulous even, because I had something to prove, not to anyone else, but to myself. I wanted my victories to mean something. And they did, until Celine started creeping into my life in ways I hadn't anticipated. At first, it was subtle. She would casually mention parties I wasn't invited to, laugh about the friends I studied instead of socialized with. Then the digs became sharper, thinly veiled accusations that I was a teacher's pet, that my professors only liked me because I was brown-nosing. I tried to brush it off, reminding myself that jealousy was Celine's burden, not mine. But the truth was, her words cut deeper than any blade. I began questioning myself, wondering if she saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. The breaking point came junior year. I had been working on a critical research paper, a project that could determine my placement in a prestigious internship. I left my laptop unattended for just a few minutes while I grabbed coffee, and when I returned, Celine's fingerprints were on the keyboard. She had tried, thankfully unsuccessfully, to delete files, erase months of research. I confronted her, and she laughed. "Relax, you'll still survive somehow," she said. The audacity of her jealousy had no bounds, and for the first time, I understood the depth of her envy. Years of built-up tension, suppressed anger, and subtle sabotage all coalesced in her mind into a single, bold act, shouting at my graduation that I had cheated. It was a culmination of everything she had ever been jealous of, my dedication, my integrity, my quiet triumphs that had no need for the spotlight. The auditorium had emptied by the time I found myself sitting across from the dean in his office. The muffled sounds of the departing crowd seeped through the door, a quiet reminder that outside, whispers would continue, and Celine's accusation would linger like a shadow over my name. Yet inside, the atmosphere was calm, controlled, and I felt a strange sense of anticipation. The dean leaned back, steepling his fingers, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Mara," he said gently, "I know what just happened out there was shocking. But you and I both know the truth. And now, it's time for everyone else to know it as well." I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. I had spent countless nights imagining this very moment, not in revenge fueled by anger, but in the sweet, satisfying inevitability of justice. Celine had tried to cast me as a fraud, but the truth had always been my ally. And now, it was time for the world to see what she could not. The dean opened a drawer and handed me a folder. Inside were copies of my records, exam proctor reports, plagiarism scans, research notes, letters of recommendation from professors who had watched me work tirelessly, independent research contributions verified and stamped, even security footage from the library showing my late-night study sessions uninterrupted. But there was more, a separate set of documents detailing Celine's interference, attempts to delete files, unauthorized access to my laptop, and even witnesses who had noticed her meddling. "This is all official," the dean said. "Every detail, every accusation she made against you, has been examined. And now, with your permission," he paused, letting the weight of his words settle, "we can clear your name completely." I exhaled, letting relief wash over me. But relief alone was not enough. This was not just about clearing my name. This was about reclaiming my narrative, about showing Celine that her jealousy, her lies, could not tarnish my years of hard work and perseverance. We returned to the stage the following week, in a smaller, more controlled gathering. The dean presented the evidence with a calm authority that left no room for doubt. Professors testified to my integrity and diligence. The library footage was displayed, silent but damning, revealing Celine's unauthorized attempts to sabotage my work. The murmurs began as confusion, then shifted into gasps, and finally into stunned silence. Celine's face drained of color, her confident posture crumbling as the truth unfolded before her eyes. No shouting, no tears, no dramatic speeches were necessary. Her own actions, meticulously documented, had spoken for themselves. And I, standing tall beside the dean, felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I spoke then, my voice steady, each word deliberate. I have worked my entire life for every opportunity, every achievement, every success. I did not cheat. I did not take shortcuts. And for years, I have loved and supported a sister who could not love herself enough to celebrate my accomplishments. Today, the truth is undeniable. And though I hope one day she can find her own path, I will no longer allow her envy to define my worth. The room was silent, but in that silence, I felt a sense of peace I had never known. I had not gossiped, not humiliated, not sought petty revenge. Instead, I had let the truth shine, a brilliant light that left no room for falsehoods. Celine slumped into her chair, and for the first time, I saw her as she truly was, flawed, vulnerable, human. And in that moment, I realized that revenge was sweetest not when it crushed, but when it revealed the truth and set me free. For the first time in years, I smiled, not the careful, small smile of a girl trying to fit into someone else's shadow, but a genuine, radiant smile. The betrayal had not destroyed me. It had given me clarity. And in that clarity, I found power, dignity, and the beginning of healing. The weeks after the revelation felt surreal, like waking from a long, suffocating dream into sunlight. Celine withdrew from public life, her usual bravado replaced by a quiet shame I had never seen before. Our parents, once so eager to compare and contrast us, now looked at me with a mixture of pride and regret, as if realizing too late how much my journey had cost me in silent struggle. I moved into a small apartment not far from campus, a space filled with sunlight and bookshelves, plants, and reminders of the life I had built on my own terms. I wanted a place that was mine, untainted by the shadows of family rivalry or the bitterness that had once seeped into every corner of my life. For the first time, I could breathe without anxiety, could wake in the morning and feel ownership over my own achievements. Work came quickly after graduation. I landed my dream position at a research institute, one that respected my talents and valued diligence. Every day I walked into the office, I carried the quiet satisfaction of someone who had fought for every inch of ground she now occupied. And though Celine's betrayal still lingered in memory, it no longer weighed me down. It had been a fire that forged resilience and clarity, not a chain that bound me. Celine tried to reach out once, months later. A text, short and tentative, "I'm sorry." I didn't realize, I read it and set my phone down without responding. Forgiveness would come in time, perhaps, but only if it was genuine and not a bandage over her wounded pride. I had learned that self-worth could not be borrowed from others' apologies. It had to be owned, protected, and nurtured from within. I spent that year writing, journaling, reflecting, chronicling every step of my journey. It was a slow process, but each page reminded me of the strength I had cultivated, the battles I had survived, and the dignity I had maintained when the world seemed determined to tarnish me. I wrote of sleepless nights and moments of doubt, of the times I had wanted to give up, and of the victories that had been mine alone to claim. And with each word, I healed a little more. One evening, as I sat by the window watching the city lights flicker to life, I realized how far I had come. I had emerged from betrayal not hardened, but refined. I had learned the power of patience, of integrity, and of letting truth do the work that anger alone could not. I was no longer the quiet, overlooked sister. I was Mara Alvarez, a woman who had been tested and had prevailed. Celine eventually began her own path of self-discovery. Therapy, difficult conversations, and quiet reflection helped her face the jealousy that had driven her to such extremes. We didn't reconcile fully, but we learned boundaries. I could love her as a sister while protecting my own soul. I could celebrate my own victories without guilt, without needing validation from her. And so, on the anniversary of my graduation, I opened my journal and wrote the words I had once dreamed of speaking aloud. I did not cheat my way through life or through college. I survived the shadows of envy, of betrayal, and I emerged stronger. I am worthy. I am enough. And I will never let anyone's darkness define my light. For the first time, the light I felt wasn't borrowed. It was mine. Unshakable. And as I closed the journal, I knew with certainty that this was only the beginning of a life lived on my terms, one defined by courage, resilience, and the sweet satisfaction of having survived, and thrived, against all odds.